All right. Hello, my friends. J.R. Dukes with you again. I want to welcome all my free-minded viewers. I appreciate you joining me as always. Have another great video for you today. We have to talk about Joe Biden's speech from yesterday, this crazy, pathetic attack on Donald Trump. It's funny how he wanted to talk about everything else other than his own record. He has to basically put a sense of fear in each and every one of us. Otherwise, he knows, they know they have no chance to beat Donald Trump in the upcoming 2024 presidential election. Also, we definitely have to briefly talk about the fact that great news for Donald Trump. The Supreme Court of the United States did agree yesterday to go ahead, put the Colorado decision on freeze for right now, and hear the merits of the case pertaining to the 14th Amendment and Donald Trump being removed from the ballot. It is going to be heard next month by the U.S. Supreme Court. I believe it's going to be February 8th. Great news for Donald Trump. This means, in case you don't understand this, Donald Trump will be on the ballot in Colorado. Donald Trump will be on the ballot in Maine. And essentially, this decision to go ahead and hear this case will freeze everything across the country. The Supreme Court being the highest law in the land, they have jurisdiction and the final say on all types of matters like this. So the good news is they are going to decide the merits of the 14th Amendment. I have had many videos on this particular issue. Feel free to check them out if you need additional information on the 14th Amendment. And of course, going forward, I will have a lot more to say about this particular subject. Today is the crazy speech given by President Joe Biden yesterday against Donald Trump. Joe Biden came out swinging. So let's get right into it. And here we go.
Tonight we begin in Valley Forge in Pennsylvania. Nearly 250 years ago, during a bitterly cold and wet winter, George Washington stationed the Continental Army on this rural plateau just outside of Philadelphia. Now, the defensible position, it gave Washington's exhausted troops time to rest, recover, recoup, and retrain for what was the long war ahead. Now, tomorrow, President Joe Biden was set to give a big speech near the very site in Valley Forge, but not to commemorate Washington or the heroes in the Continental Army who won America's fight for independence. No. Instead, Biden planned to commemorate, that's right, the Capitol riot on January 6, 2021. But due to possible snow in the forecast, the speech was moved up and took place just a few hours ago. Now, remember, slick conditions can be fatal for a president as frail and weak as Joe Biden. As I've been saying, he is one fall away, and the Democrats may very well be forced to pick a new nominee for 2024. Now, of course, the content of today's venomous speech remain the same. To sum it all up, as I told you, you're going to hear this all election season long. According to Biden, those who want to make America great again, you want America to be great again, you are a threat to democracy. And only Joe Biden, who doesn't know what day it is, can save us from ourselves. Take a look.
Just one day before January 6th. A date forever shared in our memory because it was on that day that we nearly lost America. Lost it all. Today, we're here to answer the most important of questions. Is democracy still America's sacred cause? This is not rhetorical, academic, or hypothetical. Whether democracy is still America's sacred cause is the most urgent question of our time. And it's what the 2024 election is all about.
What in the world is he even saying? Can you believe this? It is the most urgent matter, democracy. Are you serious, Mr. President? Do you believe that? I mean, come on. Does anybody really believe this? Is he really in a state of mind where he believes that we believe that junk? I mean, this is just crazy. It's insane. But you know what? He has nothing else to talk about, nothing else to do. He surely cannot run on his record. His record is terrible. He currently is the least popular president since World War II in modern American history. So he has to come out swinging and try to instill fear in everyone. It's just shameful. It's pathetic what this man is trying to do. And I am taking upon myself to make sure I teach each and every one of us exactly what's going on, because when you shine light on stuff like this, you can go ahead and call it what it is, a big lie. That is the real big lie, not what they always try to pin on Trump. They are liars and they know it.
Choice is clear. Donald Trump's campaign is about him, not America, not you. Donald Trump's campaign is obsessed with the past, not the future. Because of Donald Trump's lies. They died because these lies brought a mob to Washington. He promised it would be wild, and it was. He told the crowd to fight like hell.
He forgot the words peacefully, patriotically march to the Capitol so your voices will be heard. How convenient. Now, also noticeably missing from those remarks any mention of the economy or inflation or national security or violent crime or the fentanyl crisis. Now, in a blistering response, former President Trump told Fox News, quote, Joe Biden is the worst president in the history of the United States. He is incompetent, he's crooked, and in many respects, he is Benedict Arnold. He is destroying our country like no one else has done before. And meanwhile, we've heard the same divisive speech from Biden before. And get ready and buckle up. As I said Tuesday, my first show back for the new year, he will do this over and over and over again throughout the 2024 campaign. In fact, it's one of the only things Democrats are going to want to talk about in the lead up to the election. Here is their plan. Watch for it, notice it, observe it, and, embrace this. You know what they're going to do. They will focus on Trump, Trump, Trump. January 6th, January 6th, January 6th. By the way, without any context that should be relevant, without any mention of the 2020 riots that they refer to as mostly peaceful, they will demagogue abortion, and whenever possible, they will dust off the usual playbook that the Democratic Party has. Republicans are racist, sexist, misogynist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, transphobic. The GOP wants dirty air and dirty water, and they want some prominent Republican to push your grandma and grandpa off a cliff. Now, in contrast, here's what they won't talk about, and it's a long list. They're not going to talk about the failure of Joe Biden's border crisis. They're not going to talk about the drug crisis. They're not going to talk about Joe Biden's inflation. They're not going to talk about the horrible educational system because of the Democratic Party's unholy alliance with Teachers Union. They're not going to talk about affordable housing, homelessness, Bidenomics. They've been talking about it for years. Guess what? Only 34% of Americans actually think the economy is even decent. They won't talk about law and order and safety and security. They don't want to talk about international affairs. They don't want to talk about the war in Ukraine and Europe. They don't want to talk about the war in the Middle East and Gaza. They don't want to call terrorism and the terror attacks against our troops. They don't want to talk about the failure of their new Green Deal socialism. And get this, even life expectancy has gone down under Joe Biden. Joe Biden pretty much has failed at everything. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? So, of course, they don't want to talk about accomplishments because I can't think of any. Can you? Now, in fact, you probably won't see or hear a whole lot from Biden in the coming months. The media will aid and abet him hiding in the basement of the White House once again. And it appears that he's headed back to that basement. And Joe is, frankly, he is not up to the rigors of the job, never mind a campaign. Now, here's Biden's recent schedule, according to the RNC research. On December 22nd, he actually spent a few minutes at a children's hospital in Washington, D.C., about 9 minutes. Anyway, then he left for vacation at Camp David. He remained on vacation until the 26th, and then the very next day, he left for another vacation, this one in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And as evidenced by his horrific sunburn, well, Biden baked in the Caribbean heat for the next 7 days during a relaxing stay in St. Croix. Then he returned to D.C. on the night of January 2nd. The next 2 days, he appeared to do absolutely, positively nothing. That brings us to today's big event, a speech about how his political opponents are evil. In theory, Biden has two very difficult jobs, one as commander-in-chief and another on the campaign trail, but it certainly appears with anybody with eyes to see that Biden is doing neither of those jobs, and yet he wants you, the American people, to rubber stamp a second term.
Folks, Sean Hannity has this perfectly nailed. He's exactly correct. I think the way he summarized the speech from Joe Biden is right on the mark. Joe Biden basically lied in his speech yesterday. He wants to talk about anything and everything other than his record and that laundry list of items that Sean Hannity went over. Joe Biden is guilty of not doing his job as president of the United States. We have a open border right now. There's 500,000 people undocumented coming across the border right now and being released in our country. We have the Biden administration telling us that Donald Trump is a clear and present threat to our very democracy. Yet, at the same time, he's the one doing things that will actually destroy our country if it continues unchecked. How can you have a country if you don't have borders, if your borders are not enforced? I'm all for immigration, but you have to go by the law. You have to have a way of controlling your borders. It's just that simple. And the craziest thing is he's saying, oh, Donald Trump is living in the past. He's stuck in the past. Yet it's Joe Biden whose entire speech was about January 6th and this so-called insurrection. It was not an insurrection. At worst, it was a riot that got out of hand. Clearly, there was federal law enforcement individuals there that were causing agitation in the crowd. Go ahead and do this, go ahead and do that. There's plenty of video going around now showing exactly what I'm talking about. So don't believe everything that you're told. But if you want to know who's living in the past, it is Joe Biden and these liberal woke Democrats. They have no other game. They have to scare people in their bid to try to win. They keep accusing Donald Trump of election interference, of wanting to destroy the country. Who's destroying the country today? Who is actually taking candidates off of the ballot because they don't want you or me to have a choice for the next president of the United States? This is ludicrous. This is crazy. My friends, if you know anybody that can benefit from hearing this message, please share this video. If you're still with me, you might as well go ahead and hit the like button. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. It's very important this year that we all continue this conversation, that we all sit down and go over these facts. And listen, make up your own mind, good, bad, indifferent. If you've got something you want to tell me, put it in the comments below. I definitely love hearing from you. This is 1 year that we cannot sit on the sofa and not do something. We all have to do our part, get out and vote, help educate our brothers and sisters. Folks, democracy is on the line this year, but it is threatened by the Democrats, not the Republicans. Make no mistake about it. Appreciate you joining me as always. I always say, friends, keep that mind free and never give up. I am J.R. Dukes.